Good afternoon. It's time to talk about transformation. I hope you all are ready. My name is Rana Faruhar. I'm an assistant managing editor and economic columnist at Time Magazine, and I have the pleasure of sitting here today with Arne Sorensen, who is the president and CEO of Marriott International and probably knows as much as anybody about transformation because you've been through all kinds of it in the last few years. The news peg, of course, is this amazing acquisition that you all announced just in November to acquire Starwood. It's the biggest one, I think, ever in your business, certainly one of the biggest ones of the year. But if we look back, actually, more broadly at the last few years, you guys have been through every possible type of transformation. If you think about the financial crisis and the Great Recession and how it affected the travel and tourism business, technological change, the rise of the sharing economy, competitors like Airbnb, changing consumer tastes, the rise of the millennials as a target market. You've been through it all. And yet, you've come out the other end. You're running a company that has, I believe, triple the profits that it did in 2011, which I know many of us here would like to be in that position and want to hear how you did it. So I'm going to start broadly. We're going to cover all those topics and dig down deep into them. But tell us, through all that, macroeconomic transformation, technological transformation, consumer taste transformation, was there a particular mantra that you told yourself while you were bringing this company, this very old line company, through all that?
Well, you make it sound so good. And as if it's done. It's not.
Yeah.
This is very much a work in progress. But our business, obviously, like the businesses represented here, has been changing dramatically. And maybe the episode that really crystallized it most for me a few years ago, we had bought a company. It was called Gaylord Resorts, and it's a hotel company that had four massive hotels, 1,500 to 3,000 room hotels, huge meeting space. It had been auctioned on the market, and it was not a particularly big deal, a $200 million acquisition. And we were getting together with our team and basically said, how's the integration going? And the entire conversation was about technology. And that, to me, was this sort of clarion call that the business has changed.
Yeah.
If it had been 5 years before, we would have been talking about people.
Yeah.
We would have been talking about brand standards. We would have been talking about Salesforce, those sorts of things. And here, now this is 3 or 4 years ago, the conversation was about a reservation system, a finance reporting system, the system that the salespeople used. It was still ultimately connected to the business, but it was all about technology. And that's really probably the leading part of the transformation for us. Now, there have been lots of other pieces about approach to brands, approach to marketing, but technology has been sort of a unifier across many of those platforms.
So let's dig into that a little bit. You and I have both just come from Davos about a week and a half ago, and I actually was at a McKinsey breakfast while I was there. And they had a matrix of different industries and how far they are along in the process of digital transformation, because as we know, everybody's going to have to cope with it.
Right.
At the top of the list was financial services and media, and we've all been through that, and it's been a rocky but also exciting time. Travel and tourism was not really in the top corner, so there was still a long way to go. So tell us where you've come and where you're going in the next, say, 3 to 5 years.
Well, I think they're very much two worlds. One world which, may be dangerous to say it, but one world which I think will not be transformed that much by technology, and one which has already been dramatically transformed. And I would think to some extent in the publishing space it's similar. It's hard to imagine compelling content being produced by artificial intelligence. You might report a sports score, you might report some other things which are sort of statistically intensive, but to really have a point of view about an issue of the day, to have a perspective about last night's event in Iowa, for example, is a machine really going to provide that for us, or aren't we really going to demand some personal perspective? Well, what did you think happened last night to Donald Trump? And for us, in our space, we still have one really powerful advantage, and that is customers come and stay in hotels. You can't ship that in a box to them.
With a drone.
No, they can make their reservation online, but if they want to travel, they're going to travel, and they're going to come and they're going to stay in a hotel. They're going to sleep in a bed, and we're going to service them when they're in a hotel. So those rooms are going to be cleaned by peoples. Their food and beverage experience is going to be mostly done by people. We've got to provide that genuine welcome.
Yeah.
And so many of those jobs, I think, are jobs that will last for a long, long time if they're done right. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to force you 3 years from now to go to the front desk to get your key. I suspect all of us will be, if we like that sort of thing, we'll be going directly to our guest room to open our doors. And so there will be some impact in the hotels. But above the hotels, when you get to the booking of a room, or you get to the way we market the brands, or you get to the way we share travel experiences or dream about travel, all of that is being done online. How do I make my reservation? How do I use the app? How do I post my pictures? How do I share my stories?
Yeah. It's interesting because the two things you're talking about, which are technology and culture, are what I hear CEOs thinking about, worrying about, dreaming about all the time. Blending the two is not always easy, and in particular in a service industry, the realities of technological adaptation that you have to do for cost reasons, but also for service reasons. How do you blend that with the human touch? How do you make sure that people are not feeling alienated by technology, but are feeling empowered by it, wanting to come back to your brand?
I hope we do it well, and I'm not sure I have a perfect answer to it, but I think the people side of the business, what we've been trying to do the last number of years at least, is to break our business down into smaller units and empower the individual teams. So as we sit here today, we have 750,000 hotel rooms open around the world in 4,300 hotels. Every one of those hotels has got to feel empowered to create their own community, to create their own careers for people, to support each other, to be responsible for the feedback that comes from guests, whether it's online or in person. And we've got to give them some tools, of course, but by and large, we've got to get out of their way and actually decentralize as opposed to centralize.
Can you give me an example of how you empower managers at a local level? What sort of responsibilities have you given them that they didn't have 5 years ago?
Well, we've given them the responsibility to respond real time, for example, to online customer feedback. And it won't surprise any of you to know, you got not just TripAdvisor, but all sorts of other platforms that are out there for people to share feedback. It's driven an improvement in guest service because every hotel is getting a public report card every single day.
Yeah.
And they look at it, right?
Yeah.
So basically we say, okay, here's a piece of technology, here's a tool that we provide from the center, and that tool allows you to scrape all of that social media site so that your team can see real time what's been said about you by your guests.
That's quite a job.
And actually you can respond and fix the experience before they leave.
Wow.
If you're fast enough.
Wow.
Now, obviously, if they posted quick enough, then they've got to still be in the hotel.
It's very Darwinian. I mean, and it's like that with big data across the board, really. It gives you incredible opportunities, but that's also a lot of information, a lot of feedback to be grappling with in real time, all the time.
Yeah. I'm not sure I'd say Darwinian. I actually think it's sort of old-fashioned. It almost takes you back to a small community where you knew your customers.
Oh, that's interesting, yeah. Well, so to that point, this idea of breaking folks down into smaller teams, empowering them more, has that been catalyzed at all by some of the new competitors in the area, the Airbnbs, the sharing economy that allows these small startups, or in some cases individuals, to come in and compete with a giant company like you?
Not really. That's been a bit more recent. So for us, we're almost 90 years old now. We started as a restaurant company in Washington, D.C. in 1927, and we've been focused on service. We've been focused on people through that whole period of time. But in many respects, we've been sort of a centralized organization. And the bigger we've gotten and the more global we've gotten, the more it has become imperative that we decentralize, because you build better talent, you actually build greater accountability across the organization. People feel better about their jobs, better careers, all of those sorts of things. The Airbnb phenomenon is more recent than this in some respects. Now, they do, by itself, that's a very interesting story. I think much of what they offered, at least in their early phase, was a classic shared economy, local experience. I'm going to stay in a neighborhood. I'm going to have a host, which is often going to be in the same apartment or house while I'm there. and they're going to tell me their favorite things about that market. So it's almost like a micro concierge, if you will. And so we have had to respond to that and make sure that we are providing rich local experiences. That is, to some extent, something that preceded Airbnb. I think back 25 years ago, when you listened to what travelers wanted, they wanted a big room, they wanted a clean room, they wanted not to be surprised, they wanted consistency. So that fed our brand strategy, which was, all right, let's make sure the Courtyard room in whatever market in the world looks similar.
Yeah.
The Marriott room looks similar. Long ago, we began to hear customers saying, you know what, if I'm waking up in Cairo, I want to know I'm in Cairo.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in a room identical to the room in Cleveland.
Yeah.
So that started a design process to get more local in terms of the flavor of the interior design and the architecture, but ultimately then too around the local experiences offered in the hotels.
So to go to this newer trend of the sharing economy and how competitors like Airbnb have changed your business model. This is a topic that I think folks here are very interested in, because obviously the magazine media industry has had to grapple with the same sort of a trend. Upstarts coming out of nowhere from seemingly any industry coming in and being in the same space. What advice would you give for leaders that are trying to navigate this?
I wouldn't pretend to understand the business of these people in the room nearly as well as they do. But just sort of thinking about our transition from a conversation about people and service to a conversation about technology, I suspect the conversations that are happening in many of the rooms that you come from are less and less about the substance, the story, the piece, and more about the medium for delivering that piece. What's happening online, what's happening through the blogs we're doing, whatever other tools you're using. And I think it's as important not to lose focus on the conversation about the substance.
That's a
Now,
great point.
again, this is projecting from our space. The thing we absolutely must hold on to is the genuine welcome and the friendly service. Because if we give that up,
Yeah.
then actually we don't have
You
anything.
have no brand value. Yeah. No, that's a super interesting point, and you're actually making me think again about cultural legacy. You guys are an old company. You have a very strong culture. You're actually, correct me if I'm wrong, the first non-family member to head the company, which is, that's kind of amazing. So I work at Time, a very old line brand as well, that I think has made a successful transformation into the digital era. But we think a lot about culture and how to keep the values, the journalistic values that we think made this brand important. How have you done that? How have you kept that culture, and particularly the long-termism, in an era where there's all this technological change and there's a lot of short-term pressure? I mean, the average CEO tenure is 3 years. You've been here 20, right?
Well, I've been at Marriott for 20. I've
Okay.
been CEO for 4.
Okay, well, you're already above average.
Now, my predecessors, the founder was CEO for 45 years, and
Wow.
his son Bill Marriott, who I follow, was CEO for 40 years.
Lucky you.
So I'll never make it that long. But this is the culture and the long-termism, and we were talking before we came out on the stage. I think one of the things that's really profound about our culture is that we are focused on something not just for next quarter, but for a decade from now or 20 years from now. And it's driven by, yes, a family history, but it's also driven by a sense that most of our people are building careers with us. And we want them to build careers with us. When I got to Marriott 20 years ago, I started in March of 1996. Right away, there was a Marriott Awards of Excellence, and this is an event that happens every year, and we honor about a dozen associates from around the world for their service. And I asked one of the senior execs at the company, I knew nothing about it, is this something I have to go to, or is this something I want to go to? And he said instantly, both. And basically, it is one of the tools we use. It's not the most significant by any means, where we bring people often who've never been on a plane before, and they fly in. Their story is told in front of a room that's, 4 times this size, with a couple of thousand people in it. Their video is done. They give a speech. They're coming from all around the world, and they are examples of folks who've built careers with us, who are serving customers, who are classic line level people, but the people who are essential for our business. And through those kinds of things, but then really through this effort to build careers and to tell the stories of our people. Another sort of early episode I was struck by was sitting in the boardroom listening to Bill Marriott talk about people not based on the schools they went to, not, well, they went to HBS or they went to Wharton, but instead, you know what, that person started as a security guard.
Wow.
Or that person started as a housekeeper, and elevating the stories of growth and success, and by creating this sort of long-term sense, which you have if you think you're going to be there for another decade or 2 decades or the rest of your career, it changes the way you think about your work.
Well, it's a very interesting point because that sort of hiring and thinking about workers is actually back in vogue now. You hear companies like Google say, we don't want to look at the resume so much, we want to talk to you. What are your insights? Who are you as a person?
Yeah.
Now, my question, though, is how do you take folks that have been at the company for, almost a lifetime, decades, and make sure that they are up to speed with the technological transformations you need to make? How do you do that education? Have you changed the way your HR works?
Yeah. Training, really. Training and permission, I suppose, would be the 2 words. Training is the way you tell people you care about them, whether they're senior or junior in an organization. If you're prepared to invest in whether it's an internal training program or an external training program, whether it's something they really want to do or something you're mandating, you're telling them they're worth investing in. And then I think on some level you've got to give people permission. And we obviously, we're a big company. We have 350,000 people who wear our name badge maybe every day, and so there is new life coming into the company all the time. Some of the most profound transformation we've done recently is in areas that we didn't have as much historical fluency with. And as a consequence, it's almost easier to bring in outside talent, and you're not fighting against fighting this rear guard action against somebody who's defending the old approach.
That's interesting. Okay, so when you're talking about the new technologies, this is an area
example.
that, okay. Well, thinking about how big you are, you're going to be getting bigger still with this new acquisition. M&A is a tricky business. No matter how many synergies there are often cultural challenges, in bringing together 2 different workforces. Talk about how you're going to keep this culture and why bigger is better for you guys now, particularly since we've been talking so much about why small is important too.
Yeah. So again, I probably didn't finish that thought. So small is better on the operating side and giving accountability and permission for folks to run the business. I think on the platform side, technology, Marriott Rewards, SPG, the .com platforms, call centers, those platforms' size is a huge advantage. It gives you economies of scale, and it gives you resources to invest in new platforms. So the biggest reason we're doing this deal is really to free up resources to invest in consumer-facing technology, in our consumer ecosystem. So that whether you're a rewards member or an SPG member, we're going to build on both those programs, make them stronger, give you more places to earn points, of course, and redeem points, but also allow you to share travel stories and dream about travel and the like. And so when we looked at Starwood and Marriott, what we saw was we each are spending hundreds of millions of dollars a year on a property management system or a point of sale system. Point of sale is whatever runs the cash registers in effect, right? But these are complicated systems that need to hook up with reservations and the rest, or .com or reservation systems. And if we could really shift to just one, we will free up hundreds of millions of dollars a year we can invest, again, in an app that's focused on consumers and the like. We saw in Starwood a very complementary set of DNA. So our history has been as an operating company, quality service, we run hotels, we take care of our guests, we take care of our people, those kinds of concepts. Starwood, of course, has that too, but in the last decade they have rolled out W, a loft. They've been brand focused and marketing focused, and their DNA is disproportionately in that arena and less in the operating side. We've done a lot in the last 5 years or so with new brands and with marketing and with other things that we've done. But by trying to pull these companies together, we want very much to preserve our culture of taking care of people and building careers. We think that translates very well. But we also want to preserve and build on this culture around marketing and brand and promotion and other things which are really important to connect with consumers.
So on that note, how will the new larger company market to millennials, which is a question everybody here is very interested in as well? What do these consumers want? How are they different than generations past?
They all hate to be characterized that way. we had a year ago, we pulled our global operators together and we did we had a panel of millennials judge our senior executives on sort of innovation ideas.
Oh my gosh.
And so we did this in Miami.
Embraced.
We did this in Miami, and we sent our team out to see the city and new restaurants and design centers and galleries and all sorts of other things, and then had them come back and present to this group of 5 millennials. And I talked to them afterwards just to say thank you for coming, and they said, "Don't ever call us millennials again."
Ooh, okay, all right.
Not with anger, but basically saying, we're quite different from each other, and I think that's right. I think actually this is a generation that we like to describe in a certain way as if they're monolithic. In fact, much of what we describe, I'm a boomer, and I feel the same way. I'm dependent on my technology. I don't want formality for formality's sake. In a luxury hotel, I actually don't want to be buried with service. In fact, I'd just as soon be somewhat independent and still move around. I want it to be just so when I want it that way, but I don't necessarily want it to be offered in front of me all the time. I want to look like a bum often, wearing jeans and a t-shirt, no matter what sort of circumstance I'm in. And again, I think that's something that is happening with everybody. How do you market this stuff? How's marketing changing? Well, again, this is a group that knows so much more than I do about this, but we are, we'll market in every way we can. We'll continue to do print advertising, hopefully in a targeted way. But we've got our 4th movie coming out, and these movies are 15 minutes long. They're fun. They're not meant to be terribly serious, but they've all been viewed about 5 million times on YouTube. And I learn a lot from my kids when they come home. They gather in the kitchen, and they'll pull up on their computers commercials, including movies like ours. That they say, "Hey, did you see what so and so did?
Yeah.
Take a look at
Yeah.
it." And so they're coming to us and saying, "This is an ad we want to see."
That's really
Now,
interesting.
if it's really an ad, if it's like an old TV ad, they'll never come and ask to watch for it.
So
But if it's a story, if it tells something that connects with them emotionally, even if Marriott shows up in it or some other brand shows up in it, they'll say, "This story is worth seeing again and again."
That's fascinating. So they're very savvy. They're on to you if you're not delivering smart narrative or if it seems like you're pushing too hard.
Yep.
But they don't have prejudices about where the content comes from.
That's right. I think that's right.
That's interesting. We've got about 5 minutes left here. Let's go global for a minute, since you guys are so global. You just opened a hotel in Haiti.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about an emerging market. That's quite something. Tell us a little bit about why you did that, and then I want to kind of take you around the globe and talk a little bit about the economics and politics of the moment and how that's affecting your business.
Well, it's now 6 years, I think, after the devastation in Haiti a few years back, we heard from our Haitian associates in the United States, maybe have 4,000 or 5,000, we think, roughly, mostly in Eastern Corridor, New York and Florida, I think would be the most common markets. And they said it sure would be great if Marriott could do something to be helpful. We heard that. We of course did something on the charitable side, but we're much more interested in whether or not we could do something with a hotel. And we did. We found a partner who had a significant business in Haiti, and President Clinton helped us put this transaction together. He's of course spent a great deal of time on Haiti. He's been a gift to Haiti in many respects. We opened the hotel about a year ago. It is one of the best things about our business. There are 200 people now who are employed full-time at that hotel. Their lives have been transformed, their families' lives have been transformed because they've got regular employment. They can predict for the future, they can grow in their job, they can invest in their housing, they can invest in education, they can live a life which is very different from the life that was available to them before they got a job.
So, I mean, what you're saying about this hotel actually ties into your previous points about customers wanting authenticity, wanting a local experience. This is something that the travel and tourism business can offer, development opportunities, yet there's tremendous political risk associated with all of this. And surely, you know, with conflict being what it is globally today, that must be impacting how you think about your business, where you put hotels. Maybe you can talk us through that. And I know you've taken a strong stand about terrorism and what business should be doing to combat it.
Yeah, so my effort in Davos last week was really to talk about what I see as our principal risk, and Donald Trump is probably the one who articulates this voice the most. But we live in a world in which there are real security threats. And there is real complex questions around the migration of people, whether they be refugees or whether they be seeking economic opportunity. And the easiest thing for a short-term focused politician to do is to build on fear and essentially say, in the guise of security or some other guise, which is worse, basically say, I'm going to talk about erecting bigger borders, bigger walls, keeping them out. And that rise of nationalism is happening everywhere, including, obviously, with this extreme voice here in the United States. But you go to Europe, you see the same thing. Does Angela Merkel survive in Germany this year? I don't know that she will, because she's got a voice there in Germany, too, which gets louder and louder. And so from our perspective, we want very much to be sensible and rational and say, okay, how do we use the information we have about people? How do governments use the information we have about people to identify the tiny fraction of people who pose real risk? And allow the rest of us to move relatively more easily. I did an op-ed piece in the Post last Friday. But, you know, I was born in Japan in 1958. I was issued a passport because I was born overseas. That passport looks identical to the passport I carry today. Nothing's changed.
Right.
And, you know, if I go various places, I still need a visa. I still have to show that thing.
Yeah.
I don't think I pose a lot of risk, but we're not using these tools in order to help us decide, all right, we actually don't need a whole bunch of rigmarole with him, or with, you know, probably everybody in this room, and 99.9% of the people around the world. So how do we let them move and essentially say, but there's a person we've got to pay attention to?
Well, you know, you're reminding me of that McKinsey matrix again, government all the way down here in terms of technology. Use of technology. So a lot to learn from business. You know, I mentioned this to you when we were backstage. When I was in Davos doing a panel about the U.S. and the economic outlook for 2016, I gave a little poll to the audience and said, if anybody but Donald Trump is president in the year ahead, will things be better economically and politically? And everybody raised their hand. So people are actually running their numbers and their economic projections based on a Trump presidency versus everybody else. Assuming we get everybody else, what's your outlook for the U.S. and also for the rest of the world economically in the coming year?
Quite optimistic for the U.S. I think the U.S. has had slow growth, to be sure, but steady growth since 2010. 2.5% GDP growth a year. We're still creating jobs as an economy. We still are reasonably optimistic as a people. There's still a lot of innovation that's happening. And yes, you can find in the oil patch, or you can find in some other parts of our economy some places of weakness. But there's every reason to expect that sort of growth will continue. I think one reason we don't hear that very much is the politicians on both sides have an interest to downplay our economy. If you're a Republican, you're out of power, so nothing's good.
Yep.
But if you're a Democrat, you really need to focus on the fact that jobs have been too slow in coming, wage growth has been too slow in coming. So you end up talking about the negative aspects as opposed to the positive aspects of the economy. I think we'll do fine. And I think Europe is actually, notwithstanding the migration crisis, it had its best year last year since the Great Recession. And you would expect it to continue. The developing world is a very complicated place.
Bumpy.
Yeah,
Bumpy,
very.
but opportunity in some places, clearly.
Yeah.
Well, you are an optimist, Arnie, and you are a transformer. Thank you for sharing all of this with us in 30 minutes.
Well, thank you. Glad to be with you. Thank you, everybody.